We live again. We live again. What's good? I want to show y'all where I'm at. Dang, this camera sucks, man. Dang, this camera sucks. What is popping? We are live in the RV, as y'all can see. Uh, got to fix the curtains a little bit. We in a undisclosed location, so I can't show y'all too much. Got me some food right here. I'm about to tear this up. Let me show y'all. I got the kitchen. Got the kitchen right there. Got the stove. Can't show y'all too much because we still getting stuff together. But yeah, I mean. So let me turn this off right quick. So after I did my live stream, let me cut these. Let me cut some of this stuff off now. I just wanted to show y'all what's going on. But so after I did that live stream, because there was still some stuff that I still, wanted to talk about. Um, but I had to hurry up and find a plug, so I wasn't really able to go in the way I wanted to. But but I got this really really cryptic message from Iku. Um, and this was, if y'all hear some stuff in the background, it's because I'm eating. But it was a very cryptic message that I got. The message was, um, don't be in a situation to where you gotta die before you understand what hell really is. That's the message. Don't don't get into a situation. What's up, Straight Panther? Don't get into a situation to where you gotta die, and then that's when you find out what hell really is. Um, these bodies that we're in, um, these bodies have a lot more properties than what you've been taught. This body that we're in has a lot more different has a lot of different properties when it comes to the spiritual realm that we don't even understand. And you know, in this time right now, a lot of people are, I can't even really say the word because I don't know if they're gonna ding me, but the S word, suicidal, suicidal. There's a lot of people right now that feels like that this life isn't worth living, you know. Um, but it is. It is. Is this is a very very important message. I wasn't able to really bring it home like I wanted to in the reading, so Spirit really like pushed me to say this. You know, be very very be thankful, be grateful that you're on this side. That's the main thing I keep hearing. Be thankful, be grateful that you over here on this side. And when I say on this side, what that means is be thankful and be grateful that you understand that there are other choices out here. You know, not all of us came from the best upbringing. Not all of us came from situations, upbringings to where we actually had a choice to um, to be in certain crowds and to be a part of certain organizations and all of that stuff. Some of us we didn't have those opportunities, and we always felt like we was less than because we wasn't able to be accepted into this fraternity. We wasn't able to be accepted into this sorority. We wasn't able to be accepted into Hollywood, you know and we walk around with this cloud, with this dark cloud of sadness and depression and all of these different things because we feel like we missed out on something, you know not even understanding that was God protecting you. you know um there are three different versions. There's I'm not gonna say three. I've only witnessed, I've only seen three different versions of hell. um and none of these versions of hell except for one, none of these versions of hell except for one, that you were like tied down to. What's good, Big Black? What's good with you? um and this I'm channeling right now, trying to give y'all this. um so I'm gonna tell you the three different, let me see, one, two, three, four, actually four different versions of hell that I saw in the spiritual realm. you know um what's up, Noah Burger? What's good with you? um so you gotta really take these words and really look up the etymology when it comes to these words, because the main thing that when I saw hell, um you know I saw held, HELD. You're held back. When you fail a class, when you were in elementary school, when you failed a class, you got held back. you know and when you got held back, some of us had to go to summer school, which means that we had to go to a place where we're separated from everybody else that's having fun. We separated from everybody else that did what they were supposed to do, so they having fun over the summer. you know what in the world? So, you know we're being held, you're being held back. That was the main thing that rang true with all of these different versions of hell, that I've seen. You was held back. Even when it comes to jail, jail is a GEL. you know it is a jail. It is something that is like an invisible barrier. You're in this invisible barrier that keeps you away from society, that keeps you away from everybody else, in society, until you pay your debt to society. And that's what it means to be in jail. And you're jailed together with all of these other inmates, you know and you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. All of your freedoms, all of your freedom to move around and all of that stuff is restricted. Think about you walking in quicksand, or you're walking in a instead of you walking in air, you're walking in this gel like substance, and it's real hard to move. Everything hurts, all of that kind of stuff. In the spiritual realm, this is what jail represents. you know so I'm gonna go through the different versions of hell, that I was able to see. And the only reason why that I was able to come back and tell y'all this stuff is because I still have my body. I still have my body. When you die, when you pass away, when you die, that 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 connection, that choice, you no longer have that choice. So when they say when you make your bed, you gotta lie in it, you know, is very true. It's very true. So um, the first dream that I had, of hell, it had to do with sovereignty. It had to do with the hell that you have to go through in order to be sovereign in this country, or to be sovereign, just period. In a world to where, um, you know you're forced to be this so-called normalcy. You're forced to be in this type of environment, to where this environment wasn't tuned to you or your people. you know um I was talking to one of my homegirls earlier, and we was having a conversation, just talking about how, um, you know, as melanated beings, we were always the innovators when it came to different things. We were always um, the ones that were the most talented. We were always the ones that had all of these different powers and all of this kind of stuff. You know. Um, but the system that we ended up being in, being in this world, um, in this world that we're in, those people aren't normal. And we know that. We know that we're not normal. And once upon a time, there used to be different caveats within the system, to where the people who weren't considered normal, they were called gifted. The people who weren't considered normal, there was different places where they can go and they can express themselves any kind of way that they would like. you know but now all of those things have been heavily restricted, because the powers that were, they all understood the importance of restricting that particular light, restricting that particular light from being able to permeate. And I feel like a lot of this happened within like the 1800s, within like the 1700s, the 1800s, wherever the Reconstruction period was. Um, that's when you really that's when this normalcy started to happen, where they really tried to change what's normal. you know you had the Salem witch trials. You had all these different things, to try to weed out these quote unquote abnormal people. And then if that didn't get you, now this and I got to be real careful when I say this, but now the mental illness system, that system, that's gonna scoop up a lot of them, because since we're not since we have these different gifts and we have these different talents about us, um we're naturally not going to operate the way a normal, manufactured person would operate. And all of these gifts and talents, all of these things, is they're like muscles, you know and what you're going to have to be able to do to work out that muscle isn't going to be something um that's readily that's readily able, for you to be able to partake in. It's just like when you walk into a grocery store. The first thing that you see, it's like, yeah, you see the produce, but it's like all the way on the end, all the way on the far side. The first thing you see is the chips. The first thing you see is the sodas. All these different stuff that's not good for you. And if you keep on eating that stuff, you're not going to be able to, um, enjoy life, because you're going to have all these health issues. Well, when it comes to us as these spiritual beings that have these otherworldly powers and these otherworldly abilities and stuff like that, you know, it's the same thing for us, but it looks different. In the spiritual world, it looks different. Um, Partaking in certain experiences to bring a emotional high. Those are the things that represent junk food in the spirit world. you know and these are things that, for a small period of time, it helps to raise up that muse, meaning you know you as a woman getting into these relationships that you have no business getting in, but they make for good songs, and you can get paid off those songs and all that type of stuff. you know because one thing that we didn't realize was that the system of Hollywood, um, that was the biggest system that was created to round up the rest of the muses, to round them up, artificially exalt them, and then kill them off and get their energy. Usurp their energy. This is something that was always going on even before Hollywood. This is just how we see it now. So in this quest for true sovereignty, and I always felt like this is what Jesus represented. You know, he represented the quest for sovereignty. The quest for sovereignty. That's why when I see a lot of these Christians and stuff like that, you know, um, it always baffles me. It always baffles me because it's like, you know, this spiritual system, it wasn't created for you to worship God. You know, it wasn't created for you to serve and worship God. The spiritual system was created so that you can go on your own path of godhood, and now you can understand God even more. You know, in order for Jesus to understand his Father and why his Father did certain things, he had to come down and really experience what it's like. Y'all don't think we did that? Y'all don't think we had that type of agreement too? We didn't come down here to be a servant to the God of this world. We came down here. A Star is Born. We came down here in order for us to collect and find this light. Collect light, and then with that light, you're able to ascend into the heavens, into heaven. And when you ascend into heaven, you become a star. And now anybody who got that, that same type of drive, that same type of passion that you had, now they have a star that they can look up to. That's what I always felt like, life was supposed to represent. And it kind of reminds me about the music. How um you know when it comes to weddings, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to certain stuff, there's no more music in 2025 that's coming out that represents marriage. There's no music that's coming out in 2025 that represents that baby Oshun, baby Eshu, that puppy love type of relationship. That brother and sister. On a spiritual level, y'all are like brother and sister. That type of relationship. There's no more music in the major lexicon that even represents that no more. You know, I was talking to my homegirl about, when it comes to women, especially when it comes to women. Um, look at all the goddesses, all the female goddesses. They especially the mother goddesses. They all got something to do with the media. They all have something to do with that social aspect. That social media, that social aspect. So, when if you can control the music, if you can control the image and all those type of things, now you can control the feminine energy that women naturally pull on. You can control that to a certain extent. You can control how men are perceived, and you can control how you feel like on an outer level that you're supposed to deal with those type of men. All of that is controlled. So, there used to be songs back in the day, and I was talking about this with my homegirl. Like there was, different songs back in the day to where you could sing about, you could be in a situation to where you dancing on a girl, and you get turned on, and y'all grinding on each other, and she can look back and be like, you want to get out of here. you know I by the time I got grown, and it was time for me to go to the club, all of that was over. Like I didn't get a chance to experience that. You know, I didn't get a chance to experience that type of situation. You know, Straight Panther, I know you probably did. You know, um, I didn't get a chance to experience that. So the women that I was in the club with and stuff like that, they didn't have that programming. You know, because they didn't grow up listening. A lot of them, they didn't grow up listening to that type of music. It wasn't something prevalent. You know, I got to experience that plenty. Yeah, and it wasn't awkward. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't awkward back then, because there was music, there was different things that supported it, and so the women was cool with it. You know, they'll be like, "Shit, you want to get out of here? Like, like, let's go." You know, like what Queen Latifah said, instinct leading me right up your alleyway. Skip the moet, let's chill with some Alizé. Enough stress in our day. Let's massage your mind. Like, like women, they don't make that type of music no more. So that type of attitude and that type of behavior has left along with it. You know. So I don't know why I went on that tangent. But so this dream that I had, and this was like the first version of hell that I had a dream about. So, and this dream, this journey started with betrayal. This first dream of sovereignty, it started with betrayal. So it's funny because um, Jesus, he died because of a betrayal. You know, and what you think that means when they say Jesus went to hell and came out with all power in his hands? What y'all think that means? That's talking about sovereignty. That's what that means. You know. So the first dream, it started with me. I had this girl, and we were dating for a while. And all of a sudden, she started to kind of act crazy. She started to act weird. And one night, she was like, "Yo, like I need you to drop me off at this spot. I need you to drop me off at this spot." And so I was like, "Okay," So I dropped her off at this spot, and it was like a gas station or something like that. And so something told me to kind of go around the corner and just kind of wait and see what's going on. So I dropped her off at this gas station. There was a motel that was right next to the gas station. I saw her look around. She didn't see me, so she walked past the gas station and walked to the motel. And I saw, like, I couldn't see who the guy was, but I saw this guy open up the door and she walked in. And when I tell you that was like the last thing I needed to see. Like, it was over. And I still got my thoughts and I still got my memories of who I am in this particular reality. I've never been without a woman before in this reality. I was always either I was always up under my mom, or I was always up under some woman, you know. And when you're that type of person, your rose colored glasses can be like super crazy. you can Your rose colored glasses are HD, because it's a type of thing to where you have an issue with being alone, you know. So it took me on this journey for sovereignty, you know. So I'm on the highway. The dream, goes to another part where I'm on the highway, and I'm looking at the signs. And this is crazy because this I had this dream in 2023. The road was called RV Road. This crazy. The road that I was on the highway, it was called RV Road, you know. And all I knew was that if I can get where my destination is on this road, it's gonna lead to some type of sovereignty. So I'm driving down RV Road, which is a highway. It's a twisty highway. It's like a spiral. Now, as I'm driving, it's like I got two different peripheral. Like it's like I got two minds. So it's like I'm driving around in a circle, and I'm driving around in a spiral, and it seems like I'm going upward. But then, in my other vision, it's like I'm going downward. So like I'm driving, and it seems like I'm going up, but then in my third eye, I'm really going down. So it gets to a point. It gets to a point to where the GPS signal got lost. So I'm like, damn. Like, where am I at? Like, dang. So all of a sudden, that third eye, that third eye, when that GPS signal got lost, that third eye, it was like every time I got in fear, that third eye kicked in, and I could see in my third eye a GPS in my mind. And my mind was telling me to turn here, to turn here, to stay on the highway, to go here, and it looked just like the physical GPS, but it was like a muscle that I haven't really worked out. So it was like glitching. It was like flashes, little flashes. The only time it would turn on is when I was really in fear. But fear, what this dream taught me, that fear is also like a steroid. You know, Fear is like a spiritual steroid. And fear can be used as a tool to help you to get to where you need to go. But then it's like a steroid, because too much fear will make you stagnant. Too much fear will put you in a situation where you don't want to move. So it can be counterproductive if you don't know how to, and most people don't know how to properly use fear. Bro, think about fear of the Lord. Being God fearing. Your spirit team may want you to make a certain move, and you need to make this move right now. You know, but if you're God fearing and you scared about, oh, God gonna punish me, God gonna do this, God gonna do that, you know, it'll put you in a situation to where you're stagnant, and then mentally you're putting yourself in hell and you don't even realize it. you know so as I'm doing this, I'm starting to see people broken down, people with their cars broken down on the side of the road. And not only are their cars broken down on the side of the road, they're still in the car, and the car is on fire. So it's like some Paul Walker type shit. So I'm driving, and all I'm seeing is, one by one, this car ran off the road, and now they they got flames. Their car is engulfed in flames, and they can't see what's around them. They don't understand that they're not too far. They don't understand the situation. So it's because this is something that I've normally, would use as a tool. But as I'm driving, it's getting to the point where the road is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But on my spiritual GPS, it's like, yo, keep going, keep going. And then it got to a point to where I couldn't really see what was in front of me for real, and I stopped trusting in my spiritual GPS, And also I ended up also, um, kind of going off, veering off the road. I didn't crash to where my car caught on fire, but I kind of, kind of crashed a little bit. I kind of went off the road, you know, and then I woke up because that's usually how my dreams go. Usually there's a talk that I have with Akasha after I wake up, because when I wake up, I'm still kind of in a daze. Like I'm still in a daze. Like I'm not all the way in my body. So I'm asking these questions. What's going on? Like, why did I have this dream? So I asked Akasha. I said, Akasha, why was it that my car didn't burn up, and why didn't I go through the hell that all those other people that I saw went through? And what she told me, she was like, um, all of those people that you saw on the side of the road, their car wasn't actually burnt up. Like their car wasn't actually in flames. You know, um, they can start their car back up and get back on the road just like how you was about to do. You know, but in their mind, in their mind, they got this fear, and that fear is what created the flames and what created this hell that they're in. And it's like all hope is lost, and they just on the road, and they just veered off the road, and they just messed up. But she was like, the reason why your situation didn't look like that was because you knew that you could try again. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's what it is. That's what it is. You know, when people have these near death experiences, and then they wake up in their hospital bed and repent, that's what that means. You know, that's what that means. That means, there's people out here, they don't know that they can try again, because whatever mental cage, whatever mental cage that they was put in when they got here, which may be a religion, which may be some type of, you know dogma or something like that, that told them that once you fuck up, that's it, you're done for. And that is so farther from the truth. Because one thing my pastor used to tell me, while your blood is still warm in your veins, you can always repent, which means you can always make the right decision and get back on the road. All of these flames and all of this stuff that you think is going on, it's all in your head. And the thing about it is, when you don't, it's like some of us, if we could really see, in the spiritual realm, the type of damage that we're doing, or if we could really see in the spiritual realm the way things really are, it will liberate some of us, but then some of us, it'll run us crazy, because it's like thoughts become things. And a lot of times we don't understand, the huge damage that we're doing to ourselves off of mere thoughts, off of you having a mere giving in to a thought that you ain't shit, giving into a thought that it's all over, giving into a thought that, maybe that's it for me, maybe this is where it all ends. And they right, you're gonna stay in that hell until you understand that you can always try again. You're gonna stay in that hell. Now that was one of the biggest dreams that I had that represented hell. Then I had another dream, and this dream, this kind of goes back to the Divine Nine. You know, this kind of goes back to the divine nine because, you know, like I said, you know, that divine nine, you know, school has started. You know, school has started, college has started, the probates and all that stuff gonna start, you know, very soon. And you're gonna have these sororities, and you're gonna have these fraternities and stuff like that, and they're gonna be recruiting. They're gonna be recruiting. And the thing about it is, um, when you're someone that's supposed to be sovereign, it's gonna be hard for you to initiate into anything. And we don't even understand, like, to the extent marriage is an initiation. You know, being part of certain jobs is an initiation. Being part of certain organizations is an initiation. Being a part of certain religions is an initiation. You know, and none of these things, God put a gun to your head. None of these things you was forced to be a part of. You know, even if you was born into a family where everybody is a AKA, everybody is a Delta Sigma Theta, everybody is a all the men are either a Kappa Alpha Psi or a Sigma. You know, all the women, all the older women are Sigma Gamma Rho. You know, but you still have a choice. You still got a choice. Don't let don't let peer pressure, don't let the fear of you being alone put you in a situation to where you end up in these hells. You know? Give me 1 second. I'm trying to see who this is. But yeah. So the second hell that I went to, it didn't even look like hell. I went to this was either the land of the AKAs or the land of the Deltas. I think it was the AKAs. No, the AKAs and the Deltas were in this particular land that I went to. And the found so like the founders were in this land, you know, and it was a beautiful land. It was a beautiful land. You know, you had nature all around, and you had these beautiful flowers and these butterflies and all this kind of stuff, and they was running around making bird noises. They're like "Ee, ee," like they was making all these different like bird noises and stuff. You know, running around playing tag like some kids. You know, um, and to me they look like kids, but when I got up on them, close to them, and I started talking to them, they sounded like old ladies. So I'm like, oh, so these must be like the founders, you know. And so I started asking them questions. You know, this was gonna be a part of the Divine Nine, but I guess I'm gonna talk about it now. I started asking them certain questions, you know. And my bad, y'all. I'm eating. I started asking them questions. The one of the questions I asked them, and this was a dream I had in 2022. It's crazy how these memories coming back. So one thing I asked them, I said, well, I got to thank one of my subscribers from YouTube because they gave me some secret information about the spell book that the Deltas use. I know about the spell book that the Sigma Gamma Rho use, and then I found out about the AKA later, but the Deltas very important because of what the Delta represent. You know, um, the women that are selected to be deltas. These are some powerful Oya women, and they got spiritually. They have keys to these worlds that represents abundance and resources. You know, um, I had this series called The Credit System of the Black Woman that I was gonna do. I never got around to doing it, but the TransUnion, the Equifax, and the Experian, these were patterned after ancient mother goddesses. The Equifax, the TransUnion, and the Experian credit system. These systems were patterned after ancient goddesses, ancient mother goddesses. You know, and this is the reason why there are certain credit bureaus, you know, that'll work with you with bad credit, and then there's some that you got to have excellent credit in order to deal with them. If you got a high, you know, and I don't want to go too much into it, you know, but if you got a high TransUnion score, or if you got a high experience score, you know, you got certain things that's connected with these credit scores, credit bureaus. So there's one credit bureau. If you're in good standing with this, you can get a house. You got certain credit bureaus. If you're in upstanding with this, you know, you'll be able to get all the material possessions, like cars and like my situation, RVs, and you know, you'll never have to use cash because of this. Like it goes deep. It goes really deep. You know, um, but all of this, you know, is still a it's like a siphoning because in order for you to be able to access this stuff, you got to be connected to God as a woman. For you to truly be able to number one, remember who you are and understand the authority that you have in the spiritual realm, you still got to be connected to source. When you become a part, when you when you become a part of that sorority, you forfeit all of that. You forfeit all of that. You know, you forfeit it. And when you forfeit it, and this is with any initiation. That's why some of us are not supposed to be initiated. You know, um, you forfeit you forfeit a lot of the things that you came down here, a lot of resources and a lot of things that you came down here for. When you get initiated, you forfeit those things because a part of the initiation is to erase yourself, like to you got to wear all white, like you got to wipe yourself clean of all of that, and now you got to be a part of them, and it's deep because the karma that they got on them, the all the bullshit, you know, like all of that. It's kind of like when you're in the military. If I'm in the military and you know my general says, you know, you got to go and unalive these people in this place or whatever. You know, spirit can show me the baby Eshu in that place, the baby Oshun. Spirit can show me like, yo, there's people here that don't need to be unalived. You know, do you think that I'm gonna be able to tell my general, yo, I can't do that. I can't do that because you know my spirit don't feel right. You know, what you think gonna happen to you in that military if you tell the general, no, I can't do that, and the general is telling you like, yo, these are, you know, terror people. Like these are people that don't mean nothing. You know, if you don't do this, you'll be dishonorably representing who we are. Do you think you're gonna be able to tell that general no? Now, when you do it, when you actually go through with it, you might get a Medal of Honor. But how does that weigh on your soul? You know, you're slowly putting yourself in hell. Why you think these military vets, they got this PTSD? You know, they got this PTSD and they're going through all these mental issues and all of this stuff. You know, it's deep. And when it comes to the Divine Nine, since y'all don't know who y'all are, you know, it's like y'all are giving away y'all's essence, y'all's, you know, it's hard to explain it because there's not a lot of words in this particular reality to explain um the different resources that we're given, you know. And it's like a time capsule. It's like sometimes, you know, you gotta wait a few years for certain shit to be is you know, allotted to you. You know, some of us, sometimes it's not meant for you to know everything at once. You know, it's not meant. So so I asked him, I said, so how do y'all keep this? I said, how do y'all keep this realm? Because you know me, I'm the baby Eshu, so I know that this ain't real. But it looks so beautiful. The realm that they're in, the realm that y'all AKAs and y'all Delta Sigma Theta's gonna go when y'all die. Hey, it's hell, but it's beautiful though. You know, you gonna look around and you're not gonna see none of your family that you really really love, and they wasn't a part of that. You're not gonna see them there. You know, and then that's how you gonna know. Hold on, y'all. That's how you know that you in hell, because it's still separated from God. You know, it's still separated from. And when I say God, I gotta be, I gotta make sure that I preface this. When you leave this particular realm and you go back to source, you know, um, it's gonna be like a, you know, like on Sonic the Hedgehog. You know, when you go past that golden ring, and it's like a progress report, and the person that's playing the game is able to be like, okay, you know, I did this, I did that, I can do this better, I can do that better. So let's go try again. You know, it's like certain decisions that you make, and you don't repent, you know. And I gotta use these particular words because it's like that's the only word that I can think of, you know, because there's an energy behind it that you gotta do. It's like, you know, it's like being a part of a gang, and the gang is blood in, blood out. So in order for you to get out the gang, you know, and you want to do it while you're still alive, in order for you to get out the gang, you know, you gotta really go through some shit a lot of times. You know, it's crazy. So I asked them, I said, so how do y'all keep this realm so beautiful? And then they showed me this book, and it had a whole bunch of names in it. You know, maybe somebody in the chat can let me know what that book. It's a book. It's a book, and it got a whole bunch of names in it. And these names are like young, like young women who still got a lot of soul in them, and that soul is like a currency to them. This is what I saw. That soul is like a currency to them, and it's like the more souls that they collect on this realm, and they're praising and they're worshiping Delta, they're praising AKA like it's a god, and they're doing all of this stuff. They're powering, they're powering that world. Just like how you don't really know where your dues are going that you're paying, you know, you don't know when you're a part of these organizations and stuff like that. You don't understand the world that you're the hell world that you're empowering, you know, is real deep, but it's like most people not gonna get it because they're gonna have to die first. And a lot of times the people who come here and they represent these prophets and they represent Eshu, they represent, these different type of people, we have a it's like we have a past. We have a past to where we can kind of go into the death realm a little bit without actually having to die, because we can hack the way we sleep. Some of us, we can hack. It's hard to explain it, but some of us, we can hack the way we sleep to where we can breathe low enough to where it's like we put ourselves in like a hibernation mode, like a coma almost, you know. And that way you're in between worlds. You're in between worlds. You're in the world. You're in between the world of the living and the dead. I can't really explain it. I just do it. It's hard to explain it because some of us, we've been doing it since birth. We've been doing this shit since, before we even knew what an astral travel was. We were doing this stuff, you know? Um, and so she was like, yeah. And also, as I was reading, I don't know if I said this before, but as I was reading that book, because there are some chants that you have to do in that book. And I think this is like some of the stuff that you do right before you cross over. And it's crazy, like these words, cross over. You got to cross. You got to cross over. You know, you got to go to set. Set. I know what set is because I went to a few of them in college. These were some of the sets were some of the best parties, some of the best college parties. And I didn't even understand what I was in. I didn't even understand it. I didn't understand the hell that the you know the sorority girls was actually going through behind the scenes. I just thought it was a dope ass party. I'm like, yo, like, this shit lit, you know, because I'm too young to go. I'm too young to go to the club, so I gotta go to the set. I gotta go to the sets, you know. Um, so you know, so they said it's the souls that's written in that book. The souls that are the people names that are written in that book. It's some kind of book. It got a whole bunch of names in it, and their soul energy are being extracted to keep that hell world beautiful. So that more people, so that more souls can join. You know, and most of those people aren't gonna go to the edge of that realm and understand that they're in hell. That it's actually hell because you're separated from God. You're separated from all of your soul family and all of that because of the decision that you made to be initiated in this organization. And so then I asked them. I said, so what do these all these crazy rituals mean? What does all these crazy rituals mean that you got to do so you can be a part of these sororities and fraternities? Now this is what they told me. They was like, um, when we first started this, and we first started, these sororities and stuff like that, it was nothing like they are today. It's nothing like they are today. Um, a lot of the rituals, quote unquote rituals, that they're doing, they saying these young folks, these youngsters, a lot of rituals that these youngsters are still carrying on. Not only are they outdated, but they actually had a purpose back in the early, I forgot what it was. Was it the 1900s? Like the early 1900s, they 1800s. They actually had a purpose because, um, you know, these sororities and these fraternities, these sororities, these represented a certain type of black people that made it out the system, that made it out a certain kind of system that held everybody down. So you were like an exceptional, if you were like a black person and you wanted to go to, and you ended up going to college, you know, um, you were probably ostracized from your family. You know, you were probably, uh, uh, you know, talked about like, oh, you finna be white, you finna do all this stuff. So you were kind of alone, you know, in these situations. You were kind of alone. So these sororities and these fraternities were created so that these very well educated black men and black women can have some kind of brotherhood, some kind of sisterhood, you know, because even though they're in college, not only was it still segregated and everything was still super racist, as black people, you had to stick together, you know. So it was very important, you know, certain things, you know, Kevin Samuels talked about this, certain feminine things, certain things that these AKAs and these deltas and these sigma gamma rhos would learn in these sororities, things that made them a lady, you know, things that made them into a strong black woman, you know. I'm not saying strong black woman in a feminist way. I'm saying a strong black woman because, you know, you probably didn't see that growing up because your parents were probably too broke to go to college. They didn't look at college as a as a you know, thing that meant something, you know. But the reason why you're there is because, you know, you want to influence society, you know, for black people in a certain kind of way. So it was pure, it was pure at first. I could see the childlike essence in the founders. You know, it was pure at first. And a lot of the rituals that you had to go through, these were reenactments. These were like controlled reenactments of the different things that the women of that time had to go through on a regular basis in order for them to, um, you know, in order for them to be as strong as they were. And it's like, you know, these sororities and these fraternities, a lot of them, Martin Luther King, he was a part of a fraternity. You know, a lot of these people, you know, they would be on the front lines of these marches. You know, they would be in the front lines, and if you're on the front line and stuff like that, you know, they gotta make sure that you can handle what that entails. You know, so it'll be a thing to where you get paddled real hard, or you get beat real bad or something like that, because that's actually what used to happen to them in that time. And it was like, we're trying to prepare you, we're trying to make sure that you really got what it takes to stand on this front line, you know. Like, I understood it. I'm like, okay, okay, you know, it made sense. But then they was like, you know, when the times changed, when things changed, and women started to get more freedom, you know, men, you know, black people started to get more freedom and different things. A lot of those rituals never changed. And you know, uh, um, there's like one or two, you know, three now generation of black women that never got beat at a lunch counter. They never got dogs sicked on them. They never got water hose poured on them because they were black, you know. So a lot of those, so it got to the point to where, you know, a lot of the rituals, a lot of the things that you would have to go through to prepare you for the Martin Luther King march, you know, that was happening in your town and all of this kind of stuff, you know, when all of that stuff stopped, those rituals were also supposed to stop. And when they didn't stop, it turned into hazing, you know. So now y'all know the truth. Now y'all know the truth of where the rituals came from. But then when things changed, but the rituals didn't change, and then it went into some whole other shit in the 80s, this is where hazing comes from. Because, you know, it's things are supposed to change. Things are supposed to evolve and all that kind of stuff, you know. So that was one of the hells. That was one of the hells that I went to, and we had a really dope conversation. You know, we had a really dope conversation. Um, but there was a lot of things when they were on this earth that they didn't know, and there was a lot of different things about spirituality that they didn't know. There was a lot of things about freedom and sovereignty that they didn't know. So it's like, you know, they're mad at the older, they're mad at the people who know, and y'all still keeping up this old dead tradition. You know, everything is supposed to evolve, but it haven't. You know, and the only way that it'll evolve, I hate to say it, that hell is gonna have to be drained out. You know, it's gonna have to be destroyed. It's gonna have to be drained out, and then those souls will be set free, because then they're gonna have to go on a journey. You know, like it's deep. Like, I really wish that y'all could see what really happens in the spiritual world. You know, aside from this shit, like it's real deep. And like I said, some people won't see it until they die, or until they get a near-death experience, and they're never gonna be the same afterwards. You know, like it's like this stuff is deep. And then the third one, the third hell that I saw, um this was the hell that the Hollywood people go to. This is the hell that the Hollywood people go to. And I would say that this was the loneliest hell, and this was the most depressing hell. It wasn't fire. I did go to that one. It wasn't fire, it wasn't brimstone, but when I tell you, so this particular hell, it looked like a Minecraft world. That's the best way to explain it. When I looked up in the sky, it looked like Minecraft. You know, all squares, all these different squares, and all of this stuff, and gray. It was just gray and drab, and all of these squares. Like the clouds were like squares. It looked like a glitch. Like, you know how when you play like an old Nintendo game and it glitches out and you see these squares, and it's all glitchy. That was the world that I was at. You know, and as long as it's like it, as long as you don't look up at the sky, you know, you can kind of get by. You know, but that energy, it's like a energy of depression, and just sadness and regret. You know, it's like your world crashed down, because you built all your treasures on this side, and you didn't put nothing on the other side. You didn't build nothing over there. You know, and I remember looking up at the sky, yelling and calling on, calling on God, like just calling on anything, like please get me out of here, please get me out of here. I did not, I I lost my ability to at 1 second, because I gained it back because I got this body. But in that realm, you're so tormented, and you're so like mentally, believing that you deserve this, and there's nowhere else for you to go. It's like you lose, you forfeit that ability to just get out. So like it's hard to explain it, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't like that hell. I didn't like that one. That one, it wasn't pretty. It was gray, like it was dark. It was dark. It was gray. It was drabby. It was, it's hard to explain it, but I didn't like it. And the reason why I didn't like it, because there's this energy there that you don't have a choice. You got to be here. You don't have a choice. You know. That was what I got from that one. You know. And this was right after I had that Lil Nas X, and it's funny, Lil Nas X, he been found somewhere OD'd. I had a dream to where I went to this. It was like an underground lab. I went to like this underground lab, and in order for me to fit in, I had to transfer my body, my consciousness, into another body. I had to transfer my consciousness into one of the bodies that they had, laying around, like one of the bodies that they had, so that way I can fit in. And so the body that I transferred my consciousness into was Lil Nas X. You know, I transferred into Lil Nas X because, you know, it made me look normal. It made me look like I belong there. But the body, it was like this very advanced version of silicone. It's so advanced, like this body that I was in, it was so advanced that you couldn't, you just you looking at it, especially on TV, just you looking at it, you wouldn't tell that it was a machine. Like you wouldn't tell that it was like a very, very, very well built machine. You know, it's scary to think about it now that there's machines that can, you know, that can do this kind of stuff. And so I remember, as I was Lil Nas X, I walked into this room, and there was like this CERN portal, and it was open, you know, in this room. And I remember I took off one of my I had them devil shoes on. I remember I took off one of those shoes, you know, remember them shoes that he was selling? I took off one of those shoes because I had them on, and I threw it into the portal, and then it threw itself back to me. Like it went into the portal, and then it came out, and I caught it. And it was like that whole dream I was just playing catch with that, with whatever that was throwing that shoe back at me. And it was that day that I had a dream about, you know, um the souls that get lost in that. And that was the hell that they was in. It was like a computer. It was like they were stuck in some kind of computer world, some kind of computer like Minecraft. And it's like, you know, you can build stuff, you know, you can build stuff, you know, you can build stuff, but it's gonna look like a bunch of squares, and it's not gonna look real. And then you know, when you look up at the sky, the illusion fades. You know you in hell. You know, like it's that was crazy. I wouldn't wish that on nobody, you know. Um and then the last version of hell that I went to, this was the one, you know, kind of like the biblical type of hell. This hell, I was in a burning house. I was in like a burning house. There were flames all around me. um but I didn't feel hot. It was like I didn't feel hot, but all of the thoughts and feelings that I had as far as being in a body, I had that. So it was like, even though I wasn't feeling hot, I was acting like I was hot. Even though I didn't feel burnt, I was acting like I was gonna get burnt. And I just remember, and it was almost like a nightmare, but then it wasn't a nightmare, because it was like I was running around this house. There was this lady that looked like my mom chasing me around the house, and it's flames everywhere. You know, I'm running around. She can't catch me, and you know, I'm not like burning and hot and all this stuff, but I'm just running, like I'm running, trying to escape, you know. And the more I kept saying, yo, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. You know, this ain't where I'm supposed to be at. You know, me understanding that this is not my final destination. This is not where I'm supposed to be at. Um, I was all of a sudden a portal of white light appeared. A portal of white light appeared in the living room. And as soon as I ran into it was like the more I thought that thought, like, yo, I'm not supposed to be here. I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. This ain't where I'm supposed to be at. You know, the more I kept thinking, and I'm running around because I don't want my mama to catch me. I'm running around, running, 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 you know, and the flames are getting higher and higher and higher. And the more I kept thinking that thought, the more I kept thinking that thought, all of a sudden a portal of white light opened up. And as soon as I jumped in that portal, I woke up. As soon as I jumped in that portal of white light, I woke up, and I just started like being thankful, being grateful, you know. And this was in 2023, when I went through some of my worst spiritual torment. You know, my dad was going through it. You know, he was real sick. I lost my truck, you know, so I'm already feeling low. You know, I lost my truck. I'm going through so much, to the point one of my tooth started falling out. My mouth is hurting. I ain't got no insurance to get pain medicine. Like it was bad in 2023. I was going through it, but I turned into the guy from It's a Wonderful Life. When I woke up, I was so grateful that I was in this body. I was so grateful. I'm like, look, I don't care. Like I don't care what I'm going through. The fact that I'm still in this body, and and I can change the channel. I can change the spiritual channel because I'm in this body. Um, it made things more bearable. It made things more bearable. You know, like it was. I turned into dude off of It's a Wonderful Life. My mouth's bleeding. My mouth's bleeding. My mouth's bleeding. Thank God, my mouth's bleeding. Ah, my mouth's bleeding. You know, that's what I turned into. you know, um, but yeah, dang, I didn't know I was gonna be on this long. Shout out to the the three people that's in here. You know, um, but yeah, the biggest thing the biggest thing that I wanted to say, and I don't even know why I'm saying this, but it's like, you know, I don't care what you're going through. Be happy that you have this medium, this body. Be happy that you have this body. There's so many spirits on the other side that wish that they had a body, um, and it's hard to explain it. It's like when you're in a body and you're going through different experiences. When you go to sleep and you go to hell, and that's, they call it nightmares, but it's like you going to hell. When you go to sleep and you go to hell, you can ascend. You know, um, all of those versions of hell, I was able to ascend from because I knew that I could try again. And when I say try again, I knew that I could wake up, make different decisions, make different choices, you know, stuff like that, so that when I go to sleep the next day, I'm having a better dream. I'm in a better place. You know, you're in a better place. When you leave, it's like you all of the lights, you know, you're supposed to come down here and and obtain a certain light, a certain type of light. And you can only obtain that light when you're sovereign, when you're searching for sovereignty. You know, you can't you're not going to be able to get this kind of light settling. I'm sorry. And I'm not talking to everybody. There are some people, they rather be in their house serving God. They rather be in their house, serving God, and telling people your testimony of all the things that you was doing before you settled. But there's some of us out here that you trying to settle, that's going to put you in hell, because that's not what your life is about. And the more you try to act like, you're normal, you trying to act like this, you trying to act like what the system wants you to be. It's like you're gonna put yourself in hell. You know, you're gonna put yourself in hell. And and that's where the regret comes in at. Regret. Like, there's so many things in this realm that can hold you back, that can put you in hell. When you got different regrets and stuff like that, you feel like you don't deserve heaven. There's certain regrets that you can have, and you can feel like you don't deserve heaven, and thoughts become things, and you are the god, you are the goddess. So um you end up in hell. But if you're someone out here, and and this is speaking to you, understand that each day, I don't care where you at, you might be in a tent, you know because you didn't want to get initiated into certain things, and you didn't want to, your family abandoned you, so now you're in this tent. Now you're in this shelter or whatever, because you wanted to be sovereign. You I don't know why certain things are opened up to me like they are, you know, but I feel like it had to, because if not, I'll be around here super depressed that I didn't get into this. I didn't do this. I didn't get into that. You know, not understanding that some of these contracts, some of the stipulations of these contracts, you won't understand the gravity of it until you die. You know, and then it's gonna be too late. It's gonna be too late, and you better hope that there's some more people like us around that do light work, that do spiritual work, helping the dead. Because they finding us out. Like some of these psychological medications that you get on, it forfeits your right to be able to do this stuff. You know, I know I'm getting a little heavy. And some of y'all out here, y'all been on these medications since y'all were a child, since y'all were in elementary school. And just think, if you were never on those medications, you had the right people around you to raise you up to a point to where all of those artistic abilities, that you had, you were able to cultivate those things. Imagine how powerful you are that you'll be now. Fully unlocked. It's deep like that. It really is. So don't get to a point where you gotta die and you're near death, before you understand that you always had the power to change your life. You always had that power to change, um, you know, starting today, starting when you wake up in the morning. It's a new day. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life. You know, and it's hard for you to understand this, and you settled. Somebody like me, every night, when I was in my truck, every day was a blessing. It puts you back into alignment. Every day is a blessing. You know, uh, um, and this is why a lot of times, like people who are entrepreneurs, because they came up from the streets. There's some of your most hard nosed, but they some of your most astute people. Because they had to be in that situation where literally every day was a blessing. Every day your door didn't get kicked in was a blessing. Every day you was able to turn a switch on and the power company didn't cut your lights off that day. It was a blessing. You know, every day, that you get up and you able to call your homeboy on the phone and he answer. You know, he not in jail. Oh damn, my other phone died. He not in jail. He didn't die. You know, so I guess that's my time. I guess it's my time to get on up out of here. But that's my message, y'all. You know, cherish, cherish every day. You might feel like nothing of importance happened this day. You know, but in the spirit realm, your spirit team is cheering you on, like they happy. They're like, yo, he made it. Like if y'all can just take that time and strengthen your third eye, strengthen that eye to where you can see on the other side. you know some of y'all, squint. Use your third eye, squint. You might not be able to handle it seeing everything, but at least squint so you can see a little bit, so you can understand how blessed you are, in the land of the living. And if y'all can heed that message tonight, y'all will be glad that you did. So that was my message. That's my message, y'all. You are witnessing the first unofficial Chronicles where I, Mr.BandClap, is giving y'all a spiritual message while I'm in my RV. You know, if y'all want to donate, help help a brother out, you know. I always got my, always got my, donations and stuff like that in the description, stuff like that. Still got my website. That's in the description as well. If y'all want to get any readings from me, nothing has changed. Um, but my cash app. Man, like Umar messed it up for people like me, man. Like I'm genuine. I told y'all in 2021 that I was gonna get an RV. In 2020, I was gonna get an RV. And you know, it might not be a school. It might not be a school, but hey, the proof. That's the proof. This the proof. Let me show y'all. This the proof. That's the proof. That's the proof. We did it. We did it. So y'all, I appreciate y'all so much for being up with me right now. And until next time, peace.